Hello, and welcome to Chapter 9, Establishing Purpose. I'm joined today by Chris Jansen, a respected colleague and friend, who I'm very excited to have speaking on this topic today because it was just recently he and I co-facilitated a workshop on strategic planning. And this is a topic that Chris is very well known about, and something I can't wait for him to be able to share his experiences with you all about. Chris, would you mind giving an introduction about your experience related to today's topic?
Yeah, hello, Michael. Great to be here today. I'm actually in Christchurch, New Zealand, and it's great to be with you again, Michael. We met many years ago and we've worked quite a bit together. My role here is, apart from being a father and many other things in the community, I'm one of the directors of Leadership Lab, which is a consultancy that works in education, health and social services, both in New Zealand but also in Asia. Well, used to when we could fly there. But in terms of your topic, yeah, do you want me to go into the first question, or do you want to just explain that a bit more?
Yeah, well, I mean, so one of the key themes in this book is about buy-in and alignment. And in order, like my sort of theory and premise is based on this fact that the closer we can align people's interests, the more likely we're going to be able to scale change so that it becomes transformative. And so the first question that we're going to explore is, what should be at the core of any purpose for a team? And how should a team leader go about making that purpose explicit?
So the main thing is that it has to be authentic, because humans have a very good sense of authenticity or not. And so buy-in, as you say, or engagement or ownership comes down to whether you see yourself in the purpose. And so probably the first question I'd ask is has the purpose for the team or for the school or the organization been co-constructed with the people in the school, or is it imposed on them? If it's imposed on them, it's going to be very difficult to get them to see the relevance to them. And the second thing I'd say is that any purpose for a team or organization needs to be in relation to solving something. So we talk about complex issues. What's the issue? Let's start with the problem that we're trying to solve here and then create a purpose around that. And so often when you say, how does a leader make the purpose more explicit, it's put the issue on the table, being really clear on not just the purpose of why we're here, but what's the thing we're trying to solve, and giving the group time to actually discuss that. We describe, you imagine a cup in your hand, you put the cup on the table, the cup represents a concern or an issue that we're trying to solve. It could be a threat, that we're trying to mitigate, or it could be an opportunity that we're trying to sort of, make available to our students. So we put that on the table, we unpack that together, and through conversation, the purpose becomes really clear. That's authentic, and people can go, now I get it. This is not just sort of like a laminated poster which says this is our supposed purpose. This is relevance now. I can see we're trying to do something.
Yeah, and I love the way that you talked about not just about it being authentic, but leadership being very transparent in terms of the problem they're trying to solve, and making that problem more explicit, because a lot of times what's imposed upon teams are performance requests, or we need to improve X, and one of the sort of writers and theorists that I really respect, as you'll know, is Richard Rummelt, who wrote Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. And he says, any strategy defined by trying to improve performance is bad strategy. You need to get the heart of the reason of why you're not performing that way to begin with. And if you can actually identify that, that to me is that authenticity that you're talking about. So I'm really glad that you identified that. Now the next thing is, all right, we've identified that authenticity, and we're connecting with people authentically, and we're getting them bought into the importance of this change we're asking. But what is the most effective way to cascade objectives through an organization? Because here we've made it clear what we want. Now how do we cascade it from this high level of what senior leadership and the community might be concerned about, so that it's being addressed at every other level in the school, so that we're getting coherent action?
It's a tough question you're giving me there, because there's like an easy answer and a hard answer. The easy answer is you take the big thing and divide it into 4 bits, and then you divide that into 4 bits, and then divide that, and that's cascading down like a waterfall. And so there's a lot of organizational theory that sort of just break it down basically. Now that makes good sense, except for the fact that you're dealing with human beings. If it was machinery, that would make complete sense. But so I guess it comes down to our approach would be have the overarching purpose, which is authentic and designed together, So create the boundaries of kind of the problem and the purpose, so that it's like direction of travel, but don't try and over-define the KPIs of every single part and every single person, because that assumes that you know the answer. In the 21st century, you normally don't know the answer to the problem. We've defined the problem. You've got a rough idea it's probably going to be in this direction, but no one sitting in the room, particularly the senior leader, knows exactly what the right solution is. So there would be a real mistake to therefore define, do A, B, C, D, E. What you do instead is you say to your team, we've identified the issue together, we've identified the core overarching purpose, let's all head off in that direction and create prototyping. And prototyping is basically your best guess around what you think, based on your intelligence and your sensing of the environment, could be worthwhile in this scene. So we basically set the direction overall, then empower people to actually prototype things. And the great thing about a prototype is you quickly find out whether it's effective or not. And most, you want half your prototypes not to be effective, because otherwise you're not risking enough. And so you have a go at a number of things. You quickly find that A, B, and F, and I seem to be really good, but the others less so. You just quickly reduce one and increase the other. So what you end up with is a strategy that's evolves over time. It's not predetermined. It's not completely willy-nilly in the sense of do whatever you like. It's within the bounds of that, but you're giving people freedom within that to go, let's basically use our collective intelligence to have a try at things and explore as we go. That's kind of the more complex way of working with strategy, which is quite different than sort of like a waterfall, which, divides it into sort of KPIs. So I told you the wrong answer.
Yeah. But no, I love how you phrased it, because to be honest with you, it isn't a simple answer. And one of the things that I really appreciated hearing from you in your facilitations was even this idea about polarity mapping, because at some level, we have to be very well organized and structured in how we approach things. But at some point, we just have to let people go and see how they do. And that really plays well into like my idea, like you were talking about prototyping, I talk about sandboxes. And so, when we think about that polarity mapping, here we've set the boundaries. All right, let's see what you do with it. Is there a point, and I guess this is coming to my last question about evaluation, like how can a team measure itself against that mission or guiding statements or strategic plan of a school? At what point do we bring them back on that other side of the polarity map to get them realigned, just in case they're going off track?
Yeah, no, great question. So you did right. It's always a bit of both. It's the Goldilocks principle. It's just not too hot, not too cold. It's got to be just right. And so what we use logic mapping, and so that's quite a defined tool. And basically, if you can imagine, at the end of the flowchart is the purpose, which we defined earlier. So that's, everyone's pointing at that. That's the alignment. At the front end of the flowchart is all the activities or the prototypes that you're doing. And the piece that connects them together is firstly your outputs, which are, did we do it? How many people turned up? What was the sort of quantitative data we can get? So it's like counting impact. And then the next one is outcomes, in terms of what difference did that make? So you end up with this logic model, which looks like a bunch of activities, bunch of outputs, like numbers, bunch of outcomes, which are sort of like tangible stories of change, which lead to the overall impact you're looking for. So at the end of the day, you can actually map out your initiative quite clearly in terms of logic, but you don't know that in advance. What you do is you build it from the end point, and then you start back at the beginning, and then you create the flow chart going towards it. And that's a logic model.
Chris, for anybody that wants to go explore these ideas further, would you direct them to your site, or is there a book or somewhere you direct them to say, as a good starting point?
Well, I mean, thanks for the promo there, Michael. We've got a lot of stuff on the Leadership Lab website, a lot of videos and all sorts of things. But to be honest, I think it's quite informed by a number of different areas. If you want to look up logic models, there's a lot of great stuff online. And I don't have a particular favorite. Polarity mapping, we've got some stuff on our site, but again, a lot of people have written about that. So yeah, can't point you to one place apart from your website and mine.
All right. Well, hey, Chris, I want to thank you very much for participating in this interview today. As always, it's just a pleasure to hear your thoughts, especially in a topic that is, so critical to not only this book, but the success of a school. So thank you again for participating.
Thanks, Michael.